Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first of the week, Convertible Conversations. I've been asked by some friends who watch these videos to give a little bit of my background, to give my testimony. That's a religious church word that we use. So I'm going to do that this week. I'm going to do a little 5-part thing, and each day tell you about a different period of life, my testimony. I grew up in a very small town, about 3,000 people, down on the edge of the Ozarks in Missouri. And it was a nice little town, a great place to grow up. Wonderful family. My mom and dad were wonderful. There was no question that they loved me. I never questioned unconditional love. I mean, that just was an absolute given for me. They went to church all the time, were very involved in the church, and so was I. I didn't mind going. It was something that we did. Certain parts of it I liked, certain parts of it, were just okay. My grandparents went to church. One of my grandmothers in particular was a really a believer who could express her relationship with God in a wonderful way. And that was just wonderful. Well, the little church that I grew up in, it was a denominational church, and it had become very liberal, what we would say today. And there was a conservative side of that too. They both had the sort of the same name, but they were different denominations. So the church that we went to, there was only one of those in our town, we went to, and really, I have to honestly say, nothing spiritual happened there for me, not for me. It just didn't. They kind of went through the motions, and the biggest deal, the one thing that they talked about all the time, was that you had to be baptized, water baptism, immersed in that denomination and in that specific church in order to get to heaven. No other way counted. Even if you were baptized in a church that was a member of that denomination in another town or city or somewhere, that was suspect. And so if you moved to our town, you had to be water baptized again. Everything was about baptism. Now, at the same time, I had an uncle who I liked very much, who was a pastor in the other, the contrary part of the same church name, but actually a different denomination that was very conservative. And so he lived in a little town not too far from there, and I went to his church camps in the summer, and they had a youth night the first Monday night of every month in different towns, and I would go to that and enjoy that, and I had friends there. Well, when I was 11 years old, I was at the church camp that summer at his church camp, and I said I wanted to be baptized. And so they baptized me in a creek there at that church camp, and it was a very real experience. I had a personal relationship with God. I could hear from God right away. There was no question about that. I knew that I was a sinner. I knew that I'd done bad things. And from what I was taught was, because of that, I was going to be burned in hell forever if I didn't ask Jesus to forgive me for that and to say that I wanted to be baptized. So I was baptized. Well, at the end of that week, I go back home and I tell people at my church that, and I say, well, that doesn't count. You have to be baptized here or it doesn't count. So I went through the confirmation class, and then I was baptized in that church. So it was sort of like I had dual citizenship. Now, my uncle's church, I would say today, both good churches, nice people. I would say today my uncle's church was legalistic. They were known primarily, at least from what I could tell, from what they were against. They were against dancing. They were against women wearing makeup. They were against mixed swimming, boys and girls. They were absolutely against drinking alcohol or gambling or anything like that. They were against women having leadership in the church, that kind of stuff. They put an extreme authority on the Bible. The Bible seemed to be, I don't know if they felt this or not, but it appeared to me to be like the fourth person of the Trinity. They did talk about a personal relationship with Jesus, and they were very real and very authentic. And when they prayed, it was just like you were talking to somebody else there. And I liked all that. Now, the liberal side of that, what had once been the same denomination that I went to, was totally different. You could do almost anything. Sin, I don't remember sin ever being talked about. we would be taught Bible stories from the Old Testament primarily. We'd be taught some social things like that. But they were extremely, I mean, you could do anything. Women were fully accepted as pastors and leaders in the church. There was no talk against moral issues or things like that. And there was really no talk about personal relationship with Jesus either. Most prayers that I heard people pray were written out. And I knew because my dad was an elder in the church and he wrote out his prayers and then he would read them at church. Each one of those denominations were adamant that they were right and that a person could not go to heaven unless they were baptized in their church. And I knew at a young age they can't both be right. And both were very exclusionary from others. Now, at the same time, I was taught unconditional love from my parents, but I never heard, and I listened because I was in church and, I was able to comprehend. I never heard talk about unconditional love. I never heard talk about grace. I mean, we sang Amazing Grace, we said grace at dinner and stuff like that. I never heard grace explained. I never heard the term finished work of Jesus Christ at the cross. I never heard those things. So that's the little denomination that I grew up in, those two, really. And I decided at a very early age that I wanted to be a preacher. I wanted to do that. I liked the whole thing about church and the people and the music and all of that, and I decided that I wanted to be a preacher. I'm going to leave you with that today, and tomorrow I'm going to tell you about kind of the next stage in my life. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you then.